The storm arrived without warning. One moment, Princess Lyra Veyl was running across the silver plains of Varkora. And the next, the sky turned black, not dark. Black lightning crawled across the clouds like veins of blue fire, illuminating the jagged mountains in the distance. Winds screamed over the frozen landscape, carrying razor-sharp crystals of ice that struck Lyra's armor hard enough to leave sparks. Behind her, something roared. Lyra glanced over her shoulder. 3 enormous shapes moved through the storm. Carax predators. Their 6-legged bodies were built for hunting in conditions where most species could not survive. Their armored hides reflected the lightning, and their glowing red eyes remained fixed on her. Lyra ran faster. Her royal escort was gone. Her shuttle had crashed. Her communication beacon was destroyed. And now the storm was getting worse. She had been warned never to enter the Black Maw during a Varkoran storm. The region was famous for killing entire expedition teams, but the predators were closing the distance. Lyra spotted a dark opening in the mountainside, a cave. She didn't have time to think. She rushed inside. The moment she crossed the entrance, the roar of the storm became muffled. Lyra collapsed against the stone wall, breathing heavily. For several seconds, there was nothing except the pounding of her heart. Then she heard a sound, a voice. "You're going to want to move away from that entrance." Lyra froze. Her hand immediately went to the plasma blade attached to her belt. Slowly, she turned. A figure stood in the darkness, 2 arms, 2 legs, a dark survival suit, a human. Lyra had never seen one in person. Everyone in the galaxy knew what humans were supposed to be. Primitive, unpredictable, dangerously stubborn. Most importantly, extinct. The human took one step into the faint blue light. He was covered in frost. His hair was dark, his face exhausted, and one side of his suit was torn open. Yet he was standing, alive. Lyra stared at him. The human stared back. "You're not a Carax," he said. Lyra raised her blade. "And you're supposed to be dead." The man almost smiled. "People keep telling me that." Another roar shook the cave. The Carax had reached the entrance. Lyra turned toward the darkness. The human grabbed her shoulder. "Don't!" She spun around and pointed the blade at his throat. "Touch me again, and I will die." His voice was calm. Lyra narrowed her eyes. "What?" The human pointed toward the cave entrance. "The storm isn't the dangerous part." Lightning flashed outside. The ground trembled. Then the cave walls began to glow. Lyra slowly lowered her weapon. "What is happening?" "The mountain is waking up." The human stepped backward. "We need to go deeper." Lyra didn't move. "Who are you? Daniel Cross? A soldier? Not exactly a criminal?" "No." "Then what?" Daniel looked toward the cave. "Survivor." The cave shook again. This time, cracks appeared across the ceiling. Lyra realized he wasn't exaggerating. "Move." They ran. Behind them, the entrance collapsed under an avalanche of ice and stone. The Carax were buried. But the cave wasn't safe. The deeper they went, the hotter the air became. Lyra noticed strange metallic structures embedded inside the walls. "These aren't natural." "No." "Who built them?" Daniel didn't answer. "Human?" He stopped. For the first time, his expression became serious. "Yes." Lyra stared at the walls. "Your species was here long before your empire existed." They continued walking. Eventually, they reached an enormous underground chamber. At its center stood a machine the size of a city block. Thousands of cables stretched from it into the walls. Blue energy pulsed through transparent conduits. Lyra's eyes widened. "This technology is impossible." Daniel shook his head. "It was built to survive the impossible." He approached a control panel. Lyra watched him activate it. The machine responded. A holographic image appeared. A human woman stood before them. She looked older than Daniel. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "If you're seeing this, the surface has already fallen." Lyra stepped closer. The woman continued. "The Varkoran storms are not weather. They are planetary defense events. When the core destabilizes, the atmosphere becomes electrically charged, and the planet begins releasing energy through the surface." Lyra looked at Daniel. "You knew?" "I suspected." The recording continued. "We built shelters beneath the mountains, but there wasn't enough time to evacuate everyone." The woman paused. "Humanity didn't leave Varkora." Lyra's heart sank. "They died here?" Daniel looked down. "Most of them." The hologram changed. Appeared human cities. Children. Ships' families. Then fire. Entire settlements disappearing beneath storms. Lyra suddenly understood. The humans hadn't conquered Varkora. They had tried to save it. The recording ended. Silence filled the chamber. Lyra looked at Daniel. How long have you been here? 11 years. Her eyes widened. Alone? Mostly. How did you survive? Daniel gave a tired laugh. I got very good at being difficult to kill. A distant explosion interrupted them. Daniel looked toward the ceiling. The storm is reaching the second phase. What happens then? The entire mountain range becomes a lightning conductor. Lyra stared at him. And this shelter? It won't survive. Then we leave. Daniel shook his head. There's nowhere to go. Lyra pointed toward the machinery. Then use that. It's not a shelter. What is it? A planetary stabilizer. Lyra understood immediately. If we activate it, the storm stops. Daniel looked at her. Maybe? It was never completed. Why? Because the people building it died before they finished the power transfer system. Lyra looked around. Can we finish it? Daniel hesitated. You can. She frowned. You sound surprised. Your species has a neural interface. Lyra touched the silver crest at her temple. Yes, the machine needs one. Then I'll do it. Daniel stepped closer. No. Lyra stared at him. Excuse me? The interface will connect your nervous system directly to the planet's energy network, and you could die. Lyra smiled coldly. I am a princess. So, I've been trained for dangerous situations. Daniel shook his head. Princess, I've watched people die in this machine. Lyra's expression hardened. Then, watch me succeed. Before he could answer, the chamber exploded with light. The machine activated by itself. A massive surge of energy traveled through the conduits. Daniel grabbed Lyra. Too late. The interface opened. Lyra stepped inside. Metallic rings surrounded her body. Daniel began typing commands. Listen to me. Lyra looked at him. What? If you lose consciousness, disconnect immediately. Understood. If your vision turns white, disconnect. Understood. If you hear voices, I disconnect. Daniel nodded. Good. He activated the system. Lyra screamed. Energy flooded her body. Suddenly, she could feel everything. The planet, the storm, the mountains, the electrical currents running through the atmosphere. And beneath all of it, fear. Millions of fragments of old humans' memories seemed to move through the system. She saw people running, ships launching, children crying, a human father holding his daughter's hand as the sky burned. Then she saw Daniel, not the man standing beside her, a younger Daniel. He was carrying a child through a burning city. Lyra gasped. You were here. Daniel stared at the interface. What? I saw you. His face went pale. Lyra suddenly understood. You weren't a survivor by accident. Daniel looked away. My daughter was here. The machine screamed. The chamber shook violently. Daniel, I'm here. The system is rejecting me. Don't fight it. I can't control it. Then don't control it. What? Listen to it. Lyra closed her eyes. She stopped resisting. The energy became quieter. She felt the planet's currents moving through her. The storm was not angry. It was wounded. The planetary core was losing balance. The stabilizer wasn't meant to stop the storm. It was meant to redistribute the energy. But someone had to guide it. Lyra understood what she needed to do. Daniel, what? I need more power. That's impossible. Your reactors. They're dead. Not all of them. Daniel looked at her. The emergency reactor. You can't use that. Why? It will burn out. Then replace it. With what? Lyra opened her eyes. The ship. Daniel stared. My shuttle? The fusion core. That shuttle is buried beneath 3 kilometers of ice. Then dig it out. Daniels. You're insane. Lyra smiled back. You've been calling yourself difficult to kill. Fair point. They moved. Daniel opened a maintenance tunnel. Lyra disconnected from the machine long enough to follow him. The tunnel led beneath the mountain. They eventually reached the wreckage of Lyra's shuttle. Daniel stared at it. That's your royal ship? Yes. It's tiny. You're insulting my ship? Just observing. They removed the fusion core. It took nearly an hour. By the time they returned, the storm had entered its final phase. The mountain shook so violently that stones fell from the ceiling. Daniel connected the fusion core. Ready? Lyra returned to the interface. No. Daniel looked at her. But do it anyway. The machine activated. Energy exploded through the chamber. Lyra screamed. The storm responded. Lightning struck the mountain once, twice. Then hundreds of times, the planetary stabilizer absorbed the energy. Lyra could feel herself disappearing into the network. She saw the planet. She saw the storms. She saw the ancient human settlements. Then she saw something else. A message, hid deep within the system. A human distress signal, still transmitting. Lyra opened her eyes. Daniel, no response. Daniel. He looked up. What? Your daughter. His face changed. What about her? She's alive. The chamber went silent. Daniel stared at her. That's impossible. I can feel her signal. Where? Lyra pointed toward the eastern mountains. There. Daniel's hands began shaking. For 11 years he had believed his daughter had died. Now there was a signal, faint, weak, but real. Can you locate her? Lyra smiled. Yes. The machine released one final pulse. The storm stopped. Just like that, the black clouds disappeared. The lightning vanished. Silence returned to Varkora. For the first time in decades, sunlight touched the planet's surface. Daniel stepped toward Lyra. Where is she? Lyra looked toward the mountains, 37 kilometers east. Daniel closed his eyes. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he laughed. It was a broken laugh. The kind that came from someone who had spent too many years believing hope was dangerous. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. Come on! Daniel looked at her. You saved my daughter. We haven't found her yet. But you found her. Lyra smiled. Then let's go. 3 days later, they reached an abandoned human research station. Inside, they found a cryogenic chamber. Daniel ran toward it. The chamber was covered in frost. A small girl slept inside, human, alive. Daniel's hands trembled as he activated the controls. The chamber opened. The girl gasped. Her eyes slowly opened. Dad? Daniel broke down. He pulled her into his arms. I'm here. Lyra stood several steps away, watching silently. The girl looked over Daniel's shoulder. Who is she? Daniel smiled through tears. She's the reason we're alive. The girl studied Lyra, then smiled. Thank you. Lyra nodded. You are welcome. Outside, the clouds parted completely. But the story of Varkora did not end there. Weeks later, rescue ships arrived. Not military ships, not imperial warships, scientific vessels. Humanity had not been extinct. Hid colonies had survived beyond the outer systems. When they received Daniel's signal, they came. And when the galaxy learned what had happened on Varkora, everything changed. For generations, alien civilizations had believed humans were reckless creatures who survived through brute force. They were wrong. Humans survived because they refused to abandon one another. They built machines beneath dying worlds. They crossed impossible distances. They endured storms that could destroy mountains. And sometimes, when everyone else believed a person was already lost, a human kept looking. Lyra eventually returned to her homeworld. But she didn't return as the same princess who had entered the storm. She returned carrying a secret. She had seen what humanity was capable of. Not conquest, not destruction. Something far more dangerous. Hope. Years later, when the Galactic Council asked Lyra why she had risked her life to save one human family, she gave them a simple answer. Because when I ran into the storm, I expected to find death. She paused. Instead, I found a human. The council laughed. They thought it was a joke. Lyra didn't laugh. That's why you should be afraid of them. The room fell silent, because everyone understood what she meant. A species capable of surviving alone was dangerous. But a species willing to walk into a storm for someone they loved, that species could change the galaxy. And humanity had only just begun.